But I can do if, you know, this, like in the UK, you're meant to work from home unless there's a good reason why you need not to work from home. But with the added overtones of somebody coming over Offa's Dyke, no, it's best to stay away.
Okay, let's make a start. So just going to mute everybody. It just means we get less background noise that way. So if you need to speak, you can always unmute yourself and join in that way. So welcome everybody to this meeting of the Rotary Club of Leicester. It's the 15th of February 2021, and I can see a few guests. We have, let me see now. We have Hule, our student from De Montfort University. She's here. Welcome. Good to have you on board as always. We have Kerry Fox from Pick Everard. Good to have you on board, and thank you very much for all the hard work you do with our newsletter. You're doing a fantastic job, and thank you for joining today. We have Chris.
My wife is here, Susan.
Hello, Susan.
Hi.
Good to have you with us today.
Thank you.
And any other guests that I've missed? Did I see Pam with you earlier, Rodney? You're muted, Rodney.
She's trying to join a concert at the moment, the cathedral, but it doesn't seem to be working, so she may come and join us.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I did invite another one of our Rotaract Club students. His name is Raul. He was going to join us, but turned out he's in Madrid and the timings didn't work for him today. So I'm going to try and get him along in the next week or two. He's very eager to see what the club is doing, and I'm trying to get more of our Rotaractors to come and see what we're doing and how the club works, so that they can hit the ground running once their club starts having their regular meetings. Okay, do we have any greetings from other clubs? Yes, Richard.
Yeah, I bring you greetings from the sort of the almost ICC UK Portugal, which we're chartering on Sunday the 14th of March, but at that meeting was Antonio, our person in Guimarães, who sends his greetings, and also Beatrice joined us, our Rotaract president. She joined us for the evening.
Oh, nice.
So anyway, and we're very keen to get Rotaract sort of heavily as involved as possible in the UK Portugal link. Okay,
did you come up with any ideas on that, or is it still?
Well, because the ICC isn't actually chartered yet till the 14th, but it was as part of the discussion we had the other evening. That it was a general consensus that we need to get as much involvement from Rotaract as possible, keep the whole thing as young as possible. That's the sort of principle.
Great.
Perhaps it's about time that Beatrice and the Portuguese reminded our club about how close the connection is between Leicester and Portugal. They got their independence because of the antics of de Montfort, of John of Gaunt and various other things. And there are 2 or 3 Portuguese princesses buried in the chapel of the Royal Choral College of the Newark.
Well, Patrick, you've just earmarked yourself as one of our guest speakers.
No, it's we'll get Beatrice to do it. Antonio's the real expert. When the Guimarães came over the first time, they took us around the whole of Leicester and pointed out how we had Leicester had given them their independence from the dreadful Spanish people.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, sounds like a fascinating subject. One to I'll mention to Ed. Okay. Any other greetings from the clubs? No. Okay. I did speak to John Aldridge this morning. I just gave him a ring, and he was very pleased to hear from me, and I did did say that members of the club were thinking of him in June, and he said that June is quite frail, but she is being very well cared for, and she's managing to play the odd jigsaw and have a coffee, and she's being well looked after. She's comfortable. So I said to John, we're thinking of him. Our prayers are with him in June, and I will keep in touch and keep the club informed. Derek Hull, has anybody spoken to him? He emailed me this morning and said he would try and play a bridge game soon, but so
he's back home, so he's out of hospital. So that.
Oh, good. Yes, Michael. Sorry, Michael, could you unmute yourself, please? It's in the bottom left of your screen. There's like a microphone. It looks like a microphone. You can just press on that. There we go.
Yeah, I spoke to him last night, and he's making progress, but it seems to be slow.
Okay, good, thank you. Wish him all the best. And at this point, we'll move on to an EGM. Hopefully everybody's had the details of that. I know we've had an abstention from Adrian. Any other members going to abstain from that? This is for the Rotary benevolent donation of 1,345 for electronic equipment to enable pupils of Netherhall School to participate in online learning. So there's just one as far as I know. Okay, so could I have a proposer? Yes, Richard, and a seconder? Yes, David Howard? Okay, and vote those in favour? Okay, any against? Okay, that's passed. Thank you. So in terms of the various projects, not a great deal to update aside from the volunteering is continuing. I did put out a Facebook post yesterday, which I will try and share with you guys. Let me try and do a quick screen share. So hopefully you can all see that. Move that out of the way. So that's just something that I shared with some of my Facebook friends, and it was very well received. We had about 24 people either comment or like, and what I'm trying to do there is keep the momentum going for our new Rotary Club, which has been formed. But we did manage to do some volunteering activities before Christmas, but since then, many students could not come back to the UK for flights being delayed and that sort of thing. So I think it's important we just remind them that we are doing things, and it would be nice to just keep them engaged, really, and so that when they are back, they will be able to hopefully slot into some projects that we're working on putting in place. So I can tell you they're very eager, and I know, for example, Beatrice has gone from, I think, about 17 people in her group to over 21 now. So that's slowly building. And yes, so as soon as they're back, we can start get them involved in projects, which is my aim. And yeah, they're very keen, very eager, and that's going well. Okay, aside from that, I'm just gonna go through my little list. Do you have any notices from Secretary, Barry?
No.
Okay. Anything else from other committee chairmen and women? No? Okay. So at this point, I will introduce our speaker. We're very lucky to have Peter Tyldesley, CEO for the Centre of Alternative Technology. And he's going to talk to us about a brief history of the future and a new partnership with Rotary. Please take it away, Peter.
That's lovely. Thanks, Parmdeep. And good afternoon, everybody. And it's a pleasure to see so many familiar faces from my previous life. So I spoke to the club on a number of occasions. It's just a shame we can't all meet at the Mercure Hotel as usual, so I can enjoy your hospitality before I have to sing for my supper. Have you set me up to share my screen, Parmdeep? Or whoever's driving this? There we go. Right, yeah, as most of you know, and Parmdeep mentioned, my name is Peter Tyldesley. I'm Chief Exec of the Centre for Alternative Technology. And again, as many of you will know, I used to be the Director of the Bradgate Park Trust, not so very far away from you. I've got about 20 minutes, I've been told, so this is going to be a pretty whistle-stop tour of this presentation, and I'm not going to stop for questions on the way, but there's going to be time for any questions at the end. So look forward to making it a bit more interactive then. CAT was established as an organisation in 1973 and actually opened its doors in 1974. And our founder was a gentleman by the name of Gerard Morgan Grenville, who was a sort of serial entrepreneur who got the environmental bug in the early 70s. And he set out his vision here, a project to show the nature of the problem and show ways of going forward. It was originally a community dedicated to eco-friendly principles and a test bed for new ideas and technology. And one of the first things that Gerard and his associates did was to scour the country for suitable sites for this community. And they found this place, Flamingo Inquiry in mid Wales. And as Gerard writes here, in such seclusion, so far from the pressures under which most people live, I had the feeling that something new, some fresh and saner way of living might be demonstrated, which conjures up all sorts of images of this sort of green and pleasant rural idyll. But what they actually found when they got to the site was this. It's Flamingo Inquiry was a slate quarry. We're on the extreme southern edge of the North Wales slate industry. The quarry opened in the 1850s. It stuttered along for most of the next century. Looking at the history, it was constantly going bust and getting bought out, and it finally closed in the 1950s. So they found, as is shown by the big picture in the bottom center, really what was a totally ravaged moonscape with piles and piles of slate waste, a few hardy trees and shrubs that had managed to get established, and a few tumble down old buildings, such as the cottages in the top right, and a few of the old slate cutting sheds, but not terribly inspiring to move into that lot, bearing in mind that we get about 41 inches of rain a year in our part of Wales. So it was a pretty daunting undertaking. But they weren't daunted, and Gerard began to gather a community of like-minded souls, fellow travellers, and looking at them as how people dressed in the 70s and 80s, it's easy to look at the clothes and the hairstyles and the beards and write them all off as a bunch of hippies. But there were some fantastic brains amongst the early pioneers, and some of the things that happened at CAT, such as experiments in renewable energy, have become the seed corn really for what is now a multi-billion dollar industry worldwide. You look at that lovely old Cretan windmill in the top right-hand corner and reading the accounts of the early days, the excitement when that thing managed to get a light bulb to light was incredible. But from that, we now have the wind industry you see today with turbines 100 meters long, generating enough power from a single sweep of the blades to power a house for a year. It all started in this wet hole in the ground in mid Wales. The word began to spread. Gerard was extremely well connected. He was an old Etonian. He'd spent his national service as ADC to a general in Paris, and Gerard's one of these people who seems to know everybody, and if he doesn't know them, he's got a way of getting to know them. So we had both the Duke of Edinburgh and the Prince of Wales visit CAT during the 1970s, and in fact, so many people visited to see what was going on. The volunteers decided they better open a visitor centre to the public in 1975 to look after all the visitors. They could actually get on with what they were meant to be doing. And the site has evolved over the years, as well as the original tumble down stone buildings that were there. It's the remnants of the quarry. Various bits and pieces have been added over the years. This is one of the earliest ones. The tea chest, as it's known, was the hub of the site in the 70s. It was the volunteer mess room and where all the communal eating and cooking went on, and it's still a cherished part of Cat's folklore. And as society evolved, the house on the right, the Waits house, actually looks lovely in green and landscaped here. The original photographs of this one, it was there almost perched on that totally untouched slate heap that you saw in the earlier picture. This was Waits Architects, the house builder in the 1970s, their interpretation of what energy efficient housing looked like. And if you can see, the first thing that strikes you is how tiny the windows are. They're huge, great, thick, triple glazed things. It was very much of its time, and we still keep it there today. It's a part of the history of thought in how these things have moved on. The Walter Seagull house on the left is a little bit later. That was the 1980s, and that's an example of a flat pack, do-it-yourself, self-build eco house. And the site continued to grow, and in 1991, they built what is probably the most iconic feature of the centre, is this water-powered cliff railway. There's a big difference in height between the car park where visitors arrived and the top of the slate tip, which is where everything actually happens. So rather than have to sort of flog their way up quite a steep slope, visitors are able to arrive in some kind of style in our water balance railway, which is a living, breathing physics experiment. And it was actually funded in the 1990s by a £1 million public flotation, and CAT briefly became a PLC. And into the 21st century, what we call the WISE building, the Wales Institute of Sustainable Education, is an exemplar of sustainable design. At the time of its construction, I think our lecture theatre had the tallest rammed earth walls anywhere in the UK. It's an incredible piece of design, and it's a real lesson for the future, because it's an absolute millstone around our neck in terms of the maintenance bills. It shows that whilst the design concept is very, very sound, the devil is in the execution and the detailing. And particularly somewhere as wet as Machynlleth, you need to have a building that is properly detailed for waterproofing. But this is the new heart of our operations. It's the home of the graduate school. Our lecture theatre capacity of 150 seats probably makes us about the biggest conferencing venue in mid Wales. We have 10 breakout rooms and classrooms, 3 reception areas, and we have 24 4-star rated bedrooms. That's 4-star rated for group accommodation. This is not conventional 4-star hotel standard. This is very much student bedroom, but it's pretty smart, and it was a huge leap forward from the sort of squalor that people lived in at CAT in the early days. But an underlying theme throughout the 40-odd years of CAT's existence has been the transformation of this barren moonscape in the bottom centre picture into this green oasis, a series of lakes, trees, and this combination of natural regeneration of nature slowly taking hold of the wasteland, aided and abetted by the efforts of generations of staff and volunteers. CAT has been demonstrating productive organic vegetable growing almost since the beginning. To start with, topsoil was imported from off-site, and since then been self-sustaining. Composting is absolutely the heart of what we do in the gardens of CAT, and CAT actually invented a form of cold composting that has taken hold around most of the world. And this story, the wildlife and the nature of the site, got a real boost at the back end of last year. We teamed up with the BBC. I don't know if anybody saw these programs. We hosted Autumn Watch, hosted Autumn Watch from the quarry in October, and the BBC came back again last month for Winter Watch. So we've been frantically running, well, the staff on site have been frantically running around after TV crews, but it has given us real exposure, and it's shown a side of CAT that people possibly weren't aware of. People tend to think of us, if they think of us at all, with things like renewable energy, wind turbines, solar panels, but the story of the rehabilitation of the quarry site is a real triumph. And it was a great opportunity to tell some of those stories to a TV audience. But running through the DNA of the place is this hands-on approach. Right from the beginning, CAT has always been about finding and providing very practical solutions to environmental problems. When the centre was set up in the 70s, the big concerns were the oil was going to run out, if you can remember back that far, with a nagging unease about the proliferation of nuclear power. Since then, obviously, the oil running out is the least of our problems. It's all about climate change and biodiversity loss. But whatever the challenges that we're confronting, it's been this relentless hands-on practical approach. Some people in the environmental movement from the 70s went down the line of political campaign and protests, the Friends of the Earth, Greenpeace. Some got very into the sort of spirituality side of things, if you think of the Findhorn Foundation in Scotland. But we are relentlessly practical. We don't sit in a circle and chant before work every day. It's all about getting stuck into practical action. Energy, heat and water are absolutely key to what we do, and in terms of what we demonstrate to the public and teach to our students. So we have a smart grid for renewable energy. We have a working mixed grid of various renewables, energy storage, and smart energy use. Generating is one thing, using it smartly is another. We have a working wind and photovoltaic teaching area. As the industry has moved on, the installations at CAT are tiny. They're by no means state-of-the-art industrial scale installations, but they are very, very handy and well sized for teaching and demonstration. In fact, in the bottom left-hand picture, that photovoltaic array there was the largest in the UK when it was installed in the 90s. And that's dwarfed by all sorts of installations now. It just shows how far technology's come. In terms of heat, we're not on the gas mains. We have a biomass district heating system that fuels the site. The one thing we are totally self-sufficient for is water, which, when you consider 42 inches if it falls out the sky every year, is not very surprising. We've reused the old reservoir from the quarry days that used to power the cutting equipment, has been repurposed as a reservoir for our drinking water, flushing the toilets, and it also powers our demonstration scale hydroelectric installation and teaching facility. And it all ends up in sustainable sewage, the reed bed and everything else. And it's very attractive for visiting universities. People can bring a group of, say, first year environmental science students, and you can do an introduction to all things sustainability in a day, and never at any point be more than 15 minutes walk away from a loo and a cup of coffee. So it's got a huge amount of appeal at that level. As I said, the mission has evolved really. The nature of the problem has changed. Our mission has moved from experimentation and cutting edge development of technology to education, increasingly working with other people to demonstrate good practice. We've moved from an alternative lifestyle, so we no longer have a community on site demonstrating how to live off grid. It's very much about promoting solutions that keep a decent standard of living with all the benefits of modern society, because to solve the crises we currently face, we need to get 67 million people in the UK on board. We're not going to solve our problems by a few dozen diehards who want to live in mud huts in the woods off grid. So CAT today, to give you a bit of context, the Centre for Alternative Technology Charity Limited is a charitable limited company governed by a board of 12 trustee directors. We've just finished increasing the size and breadth of our board. I think we had 8 when I was recruited about a year and a half ago. We've conducted a recruitment exercise to up the numbers, but also broaden the skills base in ready for the next phase of our development. Annual turnover is at around about £4 million, give or take, and we employ 90 staff on a full-time equivalent basis. The latest figure I have for volunteers is 2018-19. Volunteers contributed 14,000 hours, and our volunteering model is mainly 6-month residential placements. People come to us for 6 months, get trained up, work in the woodlands, in the gardens, and for a lot of people, it's a life-changing experience. And it's totally different. When I was at Bradgate Park until recently, we got about the same number of volunteer hours a year. We probably got slightly more. I think we got about 15,000 the last year I remember. That was entirely on a day trip basis. Difference being, obviously, Bradgate Park is within convenient driving distance for hundreds of thousands of people. If we relied on day volunteering at CAT, there aren't many people locally to just pop in and give us their time. So it's horses for courses. But unusually for a Welsh charity, CAT receives no annual funding from the Welsh Government or other statutory sources, and that staggered me. I didn't know that was a thing, because in England you just don't assume that charities are funded by the state, but in Wales it's perfectly normal for charities to have a lot of their core operating costs covered by the Welsh Government. What this does mean is that the government tend to look very favourably on us when we ask for capital investment, as we're negotiating at the moment, because they know that they put in an injection of capital for whatever we want, and that we're not going to constantly keep coming back to ask them for the running costs. The CAT brand has been developing really since the 70s, and it's become almost a place of pilgrimage. It's not too strong a word for a lot of people in the environmental movement. It's got a worldwide reputation in environmental circles, and a lot of what we're doing at the moment is trying to appeal to a more mainstream audience. We have 50,000 followers on Facebook, 500,000 annual visits to the website, of which over 120,000 from outside the UK. So we really do have a broad reach. And the advantage for us for the last 12 months, if there is an advantage to anybody, of locking down and having to do everything virtually, is we really have expanded our geographical range. The graduate school, which I mentioned earlier, we are the only higher education provider in Powys. I get very sick of local politicians bemoaning the fact there isn't a university in Powys. Well, practically there is. We're not technically a university, but we are a higher education provider. We educate about 200 master's students each year. We run 9 master's degrees, 8 MScs and a master's in architecture, and they're accredited either by Liverpool John Moores University or the University of East London. And we offer a unique campus offering these quality practical learning experiences. We operate on a blended learning model. Even our full-time students not on site with us full-time. They might be on site maybe one week a month, and then they're studying by distance learning the rest of the month. During the COVID-19 pandemic, like everybody else, we had to move all our teaching online. All our student recruitment activity went online, including open days and that sort of thing. And our numbers went up. We've got a record high intake last September, building on a record intake the year before. So the pandemic and virtual teaching has done us no harm at all in that sense. Back again to the theme of practical learning. Our site's about 24 acres and it's dotted with real life examples of experimental sustainable buildings. As I said earlier, we've got our various renewable energy installations. We have 7 different distinctively Welsh habitat types with the off-grid water management system, and we have practical workshop facilities. And we put these to use as well as the graduate school for our short courses, which are either one-day courses or short duration residential courses covering an increasing range of sustainability issues: energy, green living and crafts, building, green renovation, water and sanitation. And we've started putting these online. We've actually put an introduction to compost toilets course online. It's delivered for the first time the other week, incredibly successfully. So with a bit of innovation and filming live demonstrations on site, it's amazing what you are able to do over Zoom or similar platforms. With the pandemic, we've been running more and more webinars to engage people who would otherwise be coming to the site. Free hour-long webinars on a whole range of topics, either on our own or in partnership with other organisations. And all the past ones are available on our website for anybody who wants to catch up, ones they haven't been to. And our flagship short course is our 2-day online Zero Carbon Britain course, which has now had over 500 participants over the 6 occasions on which we've run it. CAT is a tourism provider, a major tourism provider in the Mid Wales region, attracting around about 40,000 visitors a year, which is actually down on what the centre used to get in its heyday in the 80s, probably the last great explosion of interest in the environment. And when it has to be said, a lot of the site was looking a bit more modern than it does today. But we've seen a significant increase over the last couple of years with the rise in popular interest in environmentalism, off the back of the Extinction Rebellion protests, off the back of Greta Thunberg and her school strikes and all the media coverage that's got. But we have a strong relationship with the tourism sector at a senior level. And in 2019, we were voted the best third sector organisation in the Mid Wales Tourism Awards. Those of you who know me know that I love an award, and that was the first one we got in my time there. But Zero Carbon Britain, which I mentioned earlier, Zero Carbon Britain is probably what you might call the intellectual backbone of CAT and our approach to climate change and related issues at the moment. The research started in 2007, focusing on what we need to do to achieve net zero by 2030, which is exactly 20 years earlier than the government's current target. But the key message of Zero Carbon Britain is we have the technology. This is no longer a technological problem. We do not need to wait for anything clever and new to be invented. We just need the political will and the public buy-in to get on with implementing the solutions. And our latest report, Rising to the Climate Emergency, was based on 10 years worth now of hourly energy modelling. And that sets out the scenario where we have reached net zero. We don't offer it as a prescription. We don't say this is the way you must do it. We just say this is how it can be done. This shows it can be done. If you found another way of doing it, that's great, but this proves it is possible. So it's not the technology. We just need the political will and the public engagement. So get on with it, please. The Zero Carbon Britain Hub, off the back of the Zero Carbon Britain research, we got a £1 million donation from a Welsh charitable foundation last year to help set up a 3-year project to work with councils, communities and businesses to help them move on to warm words in things like climate emergency declarations, which councillors love making at the moment, to actually making that work on the ground. So move from these declarations and warm words to action plans and actual action on the ground, and to stimulate innovation in finding solutions. And as I said, the 2-day Zero Carbon Britain course, which is probably our flagship short course, has been running online now since last year. Future plans, haven't got time for those. Suffice to say that we are planning at the moment a £20 million investment in modernising and reconfiguring the site to deliver our multiple roles as a tourism attraction, to get more into the vocational skills agenda, one of the big barriers to achieving net zero in the UK, looking at all the building work that will need to be done to adapt old buildings to modern standards, is there just are not the skills or the manpower available in the sector. So we're looking to get into that. We haven't launched the project yet. We're talking to statutory funders. We just submitted a £5 million lottery bid last week, and we are talking to the powers that be behind the Mid Wales growth deal to get a slice of the 150 odd million that's being pumped into Mid Wales by UK and Welsh government. So more on that perhaps some other time. But very quickly to finish with, we have just announced a new partnership with Rotary Great Britain and Ireland, whereby we're offering free membership of CAT for all British and Irish Rotarians. The benefits of this include free access to our visitor centre when it opens, whenever that may be, hopefully sooner rather than later, to receive the quarterly magazine Clean Slate, which is packed full of advice and perspectives on how to create an ecologically sound, sustainable way of life. And you get to read my lovely editorial every time, priority invitations to events, and much, much more. And that whistle-stop tour is it. And we hope you can come and see us soon and take advantage of the new membership offer. Diolch yn fawr, as we say in Wales. And I am very happy, Mr. President, to take some questions.
Thank you, Peter. That was wonderful. And I've actually made a note on a couple of your webinars I'd like to join myself. I think it looks great. Okay, so do we have any questions from members? And if you do, please put your hand up so I can see you, and then unmute yourself. Nick, please go ahead. Unmute yourself, please, and go ahead.
Hello, Peter. Thanks. That was absolutely fascinating. One of the things that strikes me is that one of the biggest barriers to zero carbon is our existing housing stock. And I'd wonder if you could say something about what CAT is doing in terms of modifying existing housing stock with a view to zero carbon.
Yeah, well, because it's not for us to directly modify housing stock. We offer a range of short courses on people who want to do it themselves on what we call eco refurbishment. One of the things we do offer, I didn't mention, is a free information service, which for people who are baffled by the range of technology on offer, we give a sort of unbiased, informed, witch guide type approach, if you like, to all the various technologies that are available. We are lobbying government, so far as we're allowed as a charity, about changing the building regulations. The shocking thing about the existing housing stock is not only are the old houses substandard, but we are still, every day, we are completing new houses that are still not carbon neutral. So we are just adding to the burden of retrofit every single day that house builders are on site. So yeah, that combination, training, awareness raising, political lobbying, and as I mentioned briefly earlier about the future, we are looking increasingly to get involved with the skills agenda to support the fact, the rollout. There needs to be huge armies of people trained to undertake this work, and those skills at the moment just don't exist in the industry. And these are good quality, reasonably well paid, genuinely green jobs. We hear a lot about the green industrial revolution, the green recovery. This is one of the major elements, is sorting out the UK's leaky building stock.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good question, Nick. Okay, any other questions? Yes, John.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, Peter, very interesting. And who owned the site in the first place? Was it a government quarry or was it a private company?
It was, let's say, it's passed through a succession of private companies, so forever going bust and getting bought out. And this is a part of CAT's history that we don't tend to talk about much, because it doesn't really sort of, I think, give the impression we quite like the lovely romantic idea that there was this sort of bunch of hippies rocked up on the site and started mucking about with windmills. Actually, Gerard Morgan Grenville, who I mentioned, our founder, was an old Etonian. And in scouring the site, Gerard happened to find somewhere that was owned by a bloke he'd been at Eton with. So the site was leased off the neighbouring landowner for a peppercorn for many, many years. And then in the early 2000s, CAT raised the money by public appeal to actually finally buy its site.
Yeah, I live just over the border from northwest Leicestershire in Derbyshire, and there's a lot of gravel collection around us, and for HS2, I think, primarily at the moment. And of course, quarrying companies can't just walk away anymore. They have to leave a nature reserve or, you know, some sort of infrastructure. But I guess in those days, you just took what you took and walked away.
Well, you've seen the pictures, absolutely. They just sort of shut up shop and walked away from it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Martin.
Peter, nice to see you again. Very quick question. What sort of engagement have you got with COP26?
Hi, Martin. Good to see you too. For good and very live question. For those of you who aren't aware, COP26 is the environmental conference that's taking place in Glasgow in October. Should have been October 2020, but obviously postponed due to COVID, that the UK is hosting. We are working primarily with the Welsh Government. We got our application in for accreditation to get there. I was at the Boris Johnson's launch of it at the Science Museum around about this time last year to actually see it launched. But our way into COP at the moment seems to be very much via the Welsh Government and taking an approach to what can the devolved nations of the UK do as a model for smaller countries around the world in terms of tackling climate change. But yeah, it's very much, it's looming very large on our radar at the moment.
Good.
Great. Okay, thank you. And I will now pass on to David Brunton for vote of thanks.
Peter, thank you for coming to see us at Rotary again. It doesn't seem 7 years since we first met to get together to put the visitor centre on the map at Bradgate Park. And you're well aware of the troubles we're having at the moment about the opening of the visitor centre. And thank you for your support, because I know behind the scenes you've been putting your spoke in the wheel. So hopefully we'll get some movement and we'll be back to full-time opening as soon as the COVID's over. We'll wait and see on that one. But you've moved on from the park, and what, a year and a half ago, and you've clearly moved to somewhere where you can let your passion for the environment and sustainability grow and be of benefit to the community. I wasn't really aware of what CAT did until you told me you were going there, what, a year and a half ago. And I looked it up then, and I've looked it up again since. And it's really interesting to see the work that you have been doing and the work that you plan to do in the future. Let's hope, for the sake of the community as a whole, you're successful in doing what you plan to do, and keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And please go ahead and thank Peter in the usual way. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Peter, very much.
Everybody.
And you're welcome back anytime as well. Don't forget. So.
Well, yeah, I'll come, particularly when we get back to normal. There's a free lunch. You can't stop me.
You're more than welcome. Okay, thank you. I'll just quickly mention a couple of things I didn't mention before. Just want to thank David, Brunt and Barry and other members that have helped me with the food bank appeal and getting that over the line. I saw an email this morning from David to Sarah from Rotary for Food Banks. We're now ready to start spending the over £12,000 that we've, well, not spending, but donating the over £12,000 that we've raised to buy food for local food banks. And so we're just about to send the money over to Rotary for Food Banks to allocate £550 per food bank, and 3 food banks now ready to go. They will then have an account they can log into and start purchasing Morrison's food from Morrison's, which Morrison's will then deliver directly to them. So I was very pleased to see that, and that's again great work from very many Rotarians that have helped put that together. Okay, and also Dan is doing a fantastic job as well with the Neville Hall School. We are in the process of creating revamping some garden space that they've got. So we'll keep updating you with that, and there might be some volunteering opportunities there as well. She's done a great job getting a couple of local companies to donate their time and materials to put together a really fantastic project for the students there. So I will update you on that as well. Okay, Richard, if he doesn't mind, I know members like to hear an update on the COVID situation here in Leicester.
Right, okay, well, I think we're sort of, I wouldn't say over the hill, but we can see the other side of it in the sense that the number of patients in hospital has gone down by about 40% from the high about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The mortality obviously is a lag of 2 or 3 weeks behind that, so we've still got quite a mortality, but hopefully that'll start falling off. So I think we have light at the end of the tunnel, and the vaccination program, obviously, as you know, is going extremely well. So one would hope that fairly soon, in due course, we'll be able to start getting back to some sort of normality. We can be the optimists.
That's great. Thank you, Richard. Could I just ask how many members here have been vaccinated? With their hands up.
You're going to ask me why I haven't been vaccinated. That's partly because I've got antibodies, because I've been a plasma donor and I've had COVID. And also I'm in my early 60s without any health problems, and I'm not a patient-facing member. So I'm still actually got a little way down the pecking order to go.
I've been vaccinated before you.
Sorry?
I've been vaccinated before you have.
I don't know how you manage that then.
because I do those food deliveries for the.
Okay. Yeah.
So I had that this morning. But it looks like about 2/3 of us have been vaccinated already, which is fantastic. Is there any particular vaccine you would recommend, or what's your view on that?
Good Lord,
yes, if you have the choice.
Far from me to do that. There's a very nice meme though about the Oxford vaccine, because one ought to have the Oxford vaccine, but I think there's no evidence one way or the other anything's any better or worse. I think just get whatever you can, really.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Appreciate that. And if everybody could just go ahead and unmute themselves, just so we can all say goodbye to each other. So next week we have our very own Ed Coughlin talking to us about investing through and beyond a global pandemic. So I'm looking forward to that very much. Thanks again to Peter and our members again. We have attendance of 24 today. And thanks everybody for attending. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Stay well and stay safe. See you then.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.